Hello there, welcome back to my channel and welcome back to another rankings video. I know I already promised you that I'm going to cover Kate Bush, Sonic Youth and King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard in the near future. And since King Gizzard are releasing a new album soon enough, I have to wait and I'll need some time to actually listen to all of these records. But in the meantime, I like to talk about the band and that I'm really familiar with. I know every single song they ever released. I listened to all of these albums. I don't know how many times in the last 20 years since I got into them, and I can really say they're my favorite band ever. And even though I love them, there are some things that I don't love. I don't think they have a maybe a bad record, but it's up there. I mean, it's mostly mediocre stuff. And I'm going to start with an album that I don't even own on CD or vinyl or any kind of format. It is Sorceress from 2016. What to say about this album? Well, this is an album that I really had hard time listening to from start to finish. I heard the first single Sorceress, which I thought was great, and I expected a bit more from this album. And apart from a couple of songs, besides Sorceress, maybe Strange Brew, everything else is forgettable, uninspiring, and boring. To tell you the truth, these set of songs is really generic sounding 70s prog rock stuff, and this is what they've been doing for some time. This is their third record of that prog rock era, and unfortunately they don't bring anything new to the table that wasn't already done before, even in the 70s. So the performances are good. I mean, Mikael sounds great, but the production is also not really good on this record. It feels in a way um, really processed, so there's that to it as well. So in the end, I don't tend to listen to this album at all, apart from maybe one or two songs. And I know this album was big for them in a way because it brought them new fans. And I know many people that don't like death metal version of Opeth really do love Sorceress, so good for them. But I do not like this album, and this is the reason I have it dead last and at 2.5 stars. At number 12, I have an album that is often considered their worst record, and I can definitely see that. It was my least favorite Opeth record for a while, but not anymore. I think Sorceress is a bit worse than this one. And this is the first album of their prog rock era. I'm talking about Heritage from 2011. I bought this CD when it came out. I actually haven't heard a single song. I wanted to buy the CD first and to listen to it like in the good old days, hoping that I'm going to hear another Damnation maybe or something like that, because when they announced that they recording a new album, that they're gonna ditch death metal style completely, I actually hoped for a Damnation style of record. That album had soul, it had Opeth feel to it. This album, on the other hand, has none of these things. Um, I was really disappointed when this came out. I listened to it from front to back in one go, and I was like, this is no Opeth. This has no trace of old Opeth. I mean, yeah, it's Mikael singing, playing. It's produced by Steven Wilson and Mikael as well, so nothing changed there that much. But unfortunately, this album is complete complete change of style for them. They went from a death metal, more darker, gloomier band to a generic progressive rock band that is trying to replicate progressive rock from the 70s. And you can definitely hear the influence here on this record. But the thing is, they don't bring anything new to the table. It was already done before. I mean, 40 years before this album came out. I mean, much of that things that Mikkel and the company wanted to achieve here was already kind of done. There are a couple of tracks. I mean, I don't hate this album. It is still mediocre album, but it is not great. It's not good. Um, Folklore is maybe the best song here, even though it has some questionable lyrics. That's something that I usually. Um, this is something that was kind of odd since Mikkel had some great lyrics. Overall, this song not so much. And yeah, this album feels boring most of the time, and some of these songs really drag on without any kind of direction, which is unfortunate. At number 11, I have a follow-up to Heritage, and that is Pale Communion from 2014. This album is an improvement over Heritage in every single way. It sounds better, the production is better, the arrangements are better, the playing is better, the songwriting is better. Everything is better on this album. It to me, this album sounds and feels like w- what Heritage was supposed to be. So they kind of nail that atmosphere and that sound of 70s prog rock giants that Mikkel really do uh, appreciate and something that he was aiming for. But even though I think this album is good and it has some of the best songs from this era of Opeth, like Eternal Rains Will Come, Cusp of Eternity, Moon Above, Sun Below, and my favorite from the record is the closing track, Fate in Others. I think the arrangements, like I said, are really good. Acoustic parts, the songs have more focus than on Heritage. There's much more dynamic happening here. Everything is better. It was still produced by Mikael and Steven Wilson, I think, but even though if it's an improvement over Heritage and it's an improvement, I mean, it's a better record than Sorceress, um, I still find it lacking something, and that something is that characteristic Opeth sound, something that is kind of unique to them, and that's what I miss the most. I'm not missing growls or death metal riffs, and I mean, I kind of miss that as well, but not. That's not the point of Opeth, in my opinion. They had something else going on for them, but this album, these prog rock albums, lack those things because Mikael was trying to replicate some other bands from that era. So yeah, an improvement overall, better album, but still 3 stars. At number 10, I have their debut record from 1995, Orchid. I don't have that one on CD separately, I mean, but I do have it as a part of this collection, the Candlelight Years, which contains the first 3 records, Orchid, Morning Rise, and My Arms Your Hers. So here is Orchid right here. It is an album produced by none other than a legend in metal community, Don Swano. In and this album sounds rough around the edges. They're still trying to find their sound, which is understandable for a debut record. It is mostly death metal album. It's really heavy with some hints of black metal as well, some folk elements, acoustic interludes. There are 2 instrumentals here, Requiem and Silhouette, that are shorter songs. Requiem especially sounds, it's a piano instrumental that sounds as it was perfectly made for in a horror movie. It really has that vibe to it. It was played by their bass player, Johan de Farfalla, which is a good bass player in my opinion. He played on the first 2 records, and funny thing, the bass, it has really nice sound to it, which I do like, especially on the Morning Rise, the album that will follow, Orchid. The problem with this album, the problem that I have with this record, is the songs are way too long, which in a way I don't mind. I mean, I like good songs, but these set of songs here are kind of directionless. The changes and dynamics happening in the songs are forgettable, not as memorable, not as interesting, and sometimes you can even get lost. I mean, you're listening to one song and something happens, and you're wondering, are you listening to the same song or a different song? So yeah, they were still trying to find their sound. The songs tend to meander a lot. It's a really long album, almost 70 minutes, 65 plus minutes, and sometimes it is really hard to get through in one listen. But I do love the overall vibe and aesthetics of this record, and Mikael sounds good even here for a debut, and he's gonna improve his vocal style in the course of the next couple of records. And by far, my favorite song on this record is Under the Weeping Moon. So this one I have at 3 stars, a really high 3 stars. Next one, number 9. I have their latest studio album, In Cauda Venenum. I have this nice deluxe edition signed by the band. I think this album is by far the best album they've done on this retro prog rock era. This album feels. I already told you that my problem with most of the previous 3 records is that Opeth lost its soul. But this album has that Opeth feel, Opeth touch. This feels like an album that I can say Opeth doing 70s prog rock. This album has the best production of all the albums I mentioned previously, and especially those of the era, prog rock era. It comes with 2 CDs. One CD is the original version, Swedish versions, and we have an English version as well. And let me tell you right away, I think that the Swedish version is the way to go for this album. Mikael sounds amazing here, and I really love how he sings in his native language. It really elevates some of these songs even higher, and there are a bunch of high quality songs here as well. The songs are they're more cohesive, they have a direction, they're interesting, and like I said, it has that Opeth soul written all over it. A couple of songs I have to mention here that are really good, really solid, and definitely some of their best work in the last 10 years or so, even more, are Heart and Hand, Next of Kin, Charlatan. The Garroter is an interesting song. It has that dark cabaret vibe, jazzy kind of vibe to it. It's really unique for Opeth, and it is all in all. This album is a really step up after Sorceress, and I'm hoping when we get to hear a new record, it is gonna be, if they're not going to do classic death metal anymore. I don't blame them. That's okay. But I would like to hear something similar to this, but even more fleshed out, even better than this record, because this one actually feels like an Opeth album, and this is the reason I have it above Orchid and some of the other records, and this is the reason I have it at 3.5 stars. It's a really nice album, and if you want to listen to it, please listen to the Swedish version. It's a better version than the English one. Number 8, I have their second studio album from 1996, Morning Rise. This is the CD from the collection I already showed you, the Candlelight Years. And this album is an improvement in every way from Orchid. It sounds better, the production is slightly better, the playing is better, the songs themselves are better, the songwriting is better, the song flow is much better, the dynamics, the shifts, the changes feels more natural here than it was on Orchid. And the only song that feels a bit disjointed and similar to the songs from Orchid is Black Rose Immortal. I know many people love that song. I did when I was in high school, and everyone was asking for them to play that song live, and they finally did on their last tour, and I'm glad they did. But let's be honest, the song is way too long. It feels disjointed. There are a bunch of things happening there, but the flow doesn't seem natural as some of the other songs. Even though the song contains some great moments, it's still my least favorite from this record. Now, the other 4 tracks here are great. Advent, The Night in the Silent Water, Nectar, and To Bid You Farewell, all great track. my favorite being Nectar. The bass sounds really good here. Uh, it elevates some of these songs even to the higher level, but overall, this album is a much better listening experience than Orchid was. It feels more natural and it's much easier for me to listen to this album from top to bottom. So, this is why I have it at number 8 and I have it at 4 stars, which means every album after this one will be 4 and up. Well, I had some issues with the camera, so I'm filming this a couple of days later, and I believe we're at number 7. Yes, number 7 is Deliverance. Deliverance from 2002, another album produced by the band themselves and of course Mr. Steven Wilson from Porcupine Tree. He provided some backing vocals as well. The sound on this record is still amazing, one of the better produced metal albums in my opinion, this one and Blackwater Park. This album was supposed to be a part of a double record, so Deliverance and Damnation, they were recording during the same sessions. Deliverance was supposed to be disc 1, the heavier side, and Damnation was supposed to be disc 2, mellow, somber, acoustic side. And I'm going to talk about Damnation, but not yet. And in the end, they decided to go against it, so they released both of these records separately. This one was released in late 2002, and Damnation was released in 2003, just a couple of months after this one. What can I say about this one? Well, I think this is their heaviest record by far. I mean, yes, My Arms, Your Hearse is quite heavy as well, but I think this one is their most death metal record they ever done. It is visceral, it is menacing. The riffs are menacing. Mikhail's growls here are through the roof. He's, at top of his game here. Just listen to Read, the opening track, and how visceral and evil sounding that track is, or Master's Apprentice with its chuggy, heavy riff that goes throughout the whole song. And of course, we have to mention Deliverance, the title track, one of the highlights from this record and a live staple for the band. They usually close their sets with Deliverance, which is an amazing song. The track listing here is quite packed. There are only 5 proper songs and one kind of an interlude song for Absent Friends. It is on point. It is in a way overlooked and maybe underrated. Yes, I have it at number 7, but still I think it's a fantastic record. I gave this one 4 stars. At number 6, I have their, you could say, last proper death metal record, and that is Watershed from 2008. This is the last time we hear Mikhail actually growl, and this album feels like a natural progression from Ghost Reveries. It follows a similar structure as well. It has a nice mix of heavy songs and mellow songs as well. The growl is actually less prominent here. There are only a couple of tracks where Mikhail is growling, but I find that this album has very nice atmosphere, especially on songs like Hex Omega or Porcelain Heart. Hex Omega kind of has that vibe that it could fit a James Bond movie. I'm not kidding. Just listen to that song and tell me it doesn't fit as a theme song for a James Bond movie. It has that vibe and it's quite interesting. But the biggest highlight for me on this record is actually a song called Burden, with that amazing keyboard organ solo happening in the middle of the song. It is one of my favorite solos from Opeth, and in general, I really do love that song. It has that old hard rock kind of vibe to it. It is really out of place for Opeth, but they nailed it. I think that song is quite good. And the funny thing is about this record as well, it opens up with Coil, which is basically a duet, Mikhail singing with, I believe, Martin's girlfriend or something like that. And it's an acoustic song. Flows into the second song, Heir Apparent, which is death metal song and one of the more heavier songs here on this record. And I find that contrast done really well here. I think Coil is a great opener for this record. So yeah, Watershed is the last album on which Mikkel is growling, and I know many fans, kind of old school fans, stopped listening to Opeth after this record as soon as Heritage came out. But like I said, there are some good moments on those records. But yeah, I'd be honest with you, I'd be lying to you if I say that I think New Opeth is better than any of these albums that I'm talking about. So yeah, number six, Watershed, and I have this one at 4.5 stars. At number five, I have their 1998 release, My Arms, Your Hearse. This is the last album they released for Candlelight as well, hence this is the Candlelight Years box set, and by far this is the best record they put out for Candlelight, and this album sets the blueprint for that traditional Opeth sound that we know and love. They ditched the melodic sound of their first two records that were more, like a melodic death metal band with prog elements, twin guitar leads, and so on. This time around, on My Arms Your Hearse, they ditched that. The guitars are heavier, brutal. Mikkel's vocals are improved so much, especially growls, which now have that menacing, more guttural sound to it, which is something that he's gonna improve even further on subsequent releases. But it all started on My Arms Your Hearse, and I'm gonna say it right off the bat. I have this album at 5 stars, which means everything from here now on is a 5-star record for me, and this is how I love this band. They mean so much to me, and they're my favorite band for a reason. My Arms Your Hearse is also a first concept album they ever done. It is not a full-blown concept as Still Life was, but it is still follows a story. It is a ghost story. The lyrics are more poetic, more interesting than on Orchid and Morning Rise. The playing is much better. The production is also much better than on the previous two records. The song flow is amazing, and this album contains one of their best, their signature songs, the menacing, eerie, creepy, heavy song, which is Demon of the Fall. Um, like I said, from here now on, Opeth will develop the sound they started to um, nurture on My Arms Your Hearse and make it even better. And this is the reason I have it at number five. But still, like I said, it's a 5-star record with some beautiful moments. Mikkel's clean singing here is also improved over the first two records. Just listen to Credence. He sounds amazing, and everything here, the atmosphere, the overall vibe of this record, it really shines through. I think they all did a great job, and yeah, so My Arms Your Hearse, number five, 5 stars. At number four, I have their maybe not most well-known record, but I believe that this record made them uh, break through in US, and that is Ghost Reveries from 2005. I still remember when I bought this CD, I was astonished, I was amazed how good it sounded. Um, it is a different production style than Steven Wilson. It was mixed by Jens Bogren and Opeth, and the guitars are kind of tuned down to open D, and they sound different. I mean, the riffs feels more chuggy than before, and that is apparent on some parts of the songs, like on Ghost of Perdition or The Grand Conjuration. And this album has a mix of everything. It has heavy songs like the opening two tracks, Ghost of Perdition, The Baying of the Hounds. They are more theatrical, the lyrics and everything. It sounds more grandiose than ever before. Then we have Beneath the Mire, which is more has that Middle Eastern kind of a riff to it. It's a really unique and interesting song. Then we have mellower tracks here, and that kind of bring out the Damnation style of Opeth, like on Atonement, Hours of Wealth, and Isolation Years, especially, which could perfectly fit on Damnation as well. Then we have a kind of a centerpiece track here. Reverie, Harlequin Forest, the longest tracks or longest song here, and the shifts and dynamics and the changes and how everything goes from brutal death metal to low somber vocal style by Mikkel is done immaculately here. And this album, to my ears, is perfect from start to finish. And Ghost of Perdition is actually one of the best open tracks and best opening tracks for Opeth. And I heard this one live, and I was amazed how good it sounds. All in all, this album has it all. And if you want to get into Opeth, I think this album is the one I would recommend the most because it has everything that Opeth represents. Yeah, I will highly recommend this album to anyone who hasn't heard Opeth and want to hear more. I think this is the go-to album, for me at least. So, of course, 5 stars. At number 3. This might be a controversial pick, but you know what? This is just my opinion, but still, it's a 5-star record. It is amazing, and it's maybe their most famous and well-known record, and that is, of course, Blackwater Park from 2001. This is the first album they've done with Steven Wilson. Mikael was a big fan of Porcupine Tree and Steven Wilson, so they kind of chatted, met up, and they talked about, Steven Wilson stepping in and producing one of their records. And yeah, this is the first one they've done, and I think this is one of the best, most well produced metal records, death metal records ever. The sound on this album is amazing. I like the cover artwork as well. Steven Wilson also provided backing vocals on a couple of the songs here, especially on Bleak. My favorite song from this record, second favorite song from this record. It is amazing. The opening track, The Leper Affinity, sets the tone and the mood for the rest of the record perfectly. It is menacing, and that line, "We enter winter once again," it always gets me. I think it's a great, fantastic opener. Then we go to Bleak, which once again has that Middle Eastern kind of a riff to it, which I do really love, and especially the chorus, that long chorus, which is amazing, sang by Steven Wilson. Harvest is the only, well, not the only, but the only proper acoustic song on this record. It is the only single, I believe, from the record. It is a great song. Drapery Falls, majestic, grandiose, shifts and changes happening throughout. This album closes with one of my favorite Opeth songs, Blackwater Park. I mean, that song is perfect from start to finish. The acoustic parts on this song are done amazing. The changes when the song changes from heavy riff to a acoustic somber riff, then switches back again to heavier climax. The sun sets forever over Blackwater Park line always gets me. I think it is amazing. It is a perfect record, and another record that I can recommend to people who haven't heard Opeth. I think this is the record, the go-to record besides Ghost Reveries. Everyone were on top of their game. Mikael vocals were amazing. Steven did a marvelous job with production and mixing. Drums amazing. Bass is amazing. Everything here is immaculate. So of course another 5-star record for me. At number 2, it may be high for some, but this is actually was my first album that I've listened to in full from this band, and I haven't heard of Opeth before I heard this one, and that is Damnation from 2003. Already mentioned and talked about Deliverance. These two albums were recording during the same sessions, but oops. Damnation was my go-to record. I've listened to this album I don't know how many times. My friend, an older friend, introduced me to this one. He's not even a metal fan. He doesn't like metal. He likes more prog, classic prog, like King Crimson and stuff. And he was like, "You have to listen to this. You're gonna love it. It's great." And I was kind of in a mood. It was, I believe, somewhere around 2000, early 2004 when I first heard this record. It was winter, a perfect timing for this one. And as soon as I heard the first notes of Window Pane, I was hooked. This kind of music, something that really speaks to me. This whole album is one perfect song after another. It has, this, hello there, little kitty kitty. I mean, she likes this one as well. She likes listening music with me. But anyway, Damnation is another really well produced album. It is produced once again by Steven Wilson and Opeth. The only gripe maybe I have with this record is some of the keyboard sound on this one sounds a bit off, and I don't like that the closing track here is Weakness. I think that ending credits, the song that came before Weakness, is a better fit for a closer. And I mean, it's ending credits and it sounds as it was meant to be the closing track on this record. But everything else here is marvelous. Steven Wilson once again provided backing vocals. He sang on Death Whispered a Lullaby. So yeah, this is my number two. And at one point, it was my number one because it was the only Opeth album I ever heard. But I have to, you know, give number one to one and only Still Alive from 1999. This is actually a full-blown concept record done perfectly. It has only 7 songs, and all 7 here are banger from start to finish. From the More, the opening track, which sets up the story, the mood, the tone, the vibe, and everything, to White Cluster, that dramatic ending of this story about the guy who comes back to his village after being exiled to find the love of his life, Melinda, and bunch of stuff happens here, and it's perfectly explained in all of these songs. The flow is, like I said, fantastic. The production is great. The sound, the guitar sound, Mikael sounds amazing. Just listen to Benighted or Face of Melinda. Serenity Painting Death is actually one of their heaviest songs ever. That riff is really blowing my mind every time I hear it. I have this kind of a extended special edition which contains 2 CDs. The second one actually being Surround Sound 5.1 Surround Sound. It has a nice story booklet here. I really do love this edition. I don't know where I found it, but I'm glad I did. So the only album that I'm missing now is Sorceress. I'll get to that at one point, but this album is maybe not the best album for you to start listening to Opeth, because I feel like Blackwater Park and Ghost Reveries has a more refined sound in a way, a more refined Opeth sound. This is an album that came just a year after My Arms, Your Hers, and it was improvement over that album as well. This album speaks to me on so many ways. I really love the lyrics on this album. I like everything basically. The playing is great. The guitar tone is also really good. The songs don't feel long, even they are 7+ minutes at least. The More being like 12 minutes long. I think everything works. The dynamics, the changes, and everything that's happening here. Feels natural. It feels unique. It feels interesting. It doesn't get boring at all. So yeah, this is my number one, and for a long time it has been my number one. So Still Live from 1999, my favorite Opeth record. This was my rankings. So if you have your own rankings, please do share them down in the comments below. Like, share, subscribe. Anyway, thank you for watching, and we'll see you shortly in the next one. Bye.